Welcome to Thought Leadership on Tap, presented by W Energy Software. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with W Energy Software CEO and President Pete Waldroop. Pete has over 27 years of experience in software, consulting, and energy business, previously serving as partner at Capitalize Consulting, and he was a founder and EVP at Forum Business Solutions. Now Pete is joining us today to talk about the new environment and climate that we find ourselves in and how we can keep momentum going and keep moving forward. So Pete, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So really quickly, we've found ourselves, a lot of us have, in this 100% remote environment where we are not around people and don't have that option. And there are a lot of negatives to it, but I'm curious if there have been any silver linings for you throughout this process.
A lot of our folks have said the same thing, that they're very productive during the time, and that's good. One of the things I think that's easier for us, though, is as a technology company, it's easier for us because we're used to doing some of this. I think for folks who haven't done this, especially in the oil and gas space, it's a little harder. And what I would say is hang in there, stick with it, because what you'll find is once you've done it for a while, you will become productive, you will get better at it, but it does take a little bit of learning and adjustment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so with that, this current climate can feel very uncertain, as we turn on the news in the morning versus the evening news, our moods can change, the news can change, and it can make us feel uncertain or scared, and it can cause us to almost freeze sometimes, where we have this paralysis where we don't know what to do, so we do nothing. Do you have any tips for us who feel paralyzed at home and we don't know how to move ourselves forward to help ourselves or even to help other people?
Yeah, it's a great question for sure. And I think it's really important to discuss this one. I will say that I'm as guilty as probably everyone else in America, or more guilty than some even. In the first 2 weeks of this whole COVID mess, I sat home and I thought about all the things I could cut for spending, my personal life and my professional life, what we could do to cut spending and keep costs down, et cetera, et cetera. And what I realized after a couple of weeks of that was that I was doing a disservice to everyone around me and to our country in general. I think the key thing for us to remember is we have to keep moving. We have to keep the economy moving. And so whether we're at home or we're in the office, it doesn't really matter. So one of the things I did was I brought all my service providers back, all my personal folks. So I have a guy who works in my yard, cuts my lawn because I'm far too lazy to do that now. So he came in, I brought him back. He's doing all that again. And then a lady that helps me with some of the things around my house, she's back. And so are people being more cautious wearing masks? Sure. But then the same thing professionally, what we tried to do was get all of our service providers back up and running as quickly as possible with all the things they need to be doing. So in places where I had tried to scale things back, we immediately reversed that and said, okay, that's the wrong answer. We're doing a disservice to our service providers, to our clients, and to our country as a whole. So we've done a lot of work around getting people back moving. And if I could urge people to do one thing, I would say, let's do that. Let's keep the country moving economically, financially.
Yeah, that's great, I think. And there's so many little things we can do, just like bringing back our lawn guy, things like that do make a difference in small businesses.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I know you know this, but I am new, probably almost 90 days into oil and gas. I'm at a very interesting time and loving it, learning a lot, certainly things that you can't really put into a training manual. But what advice would you have to people that just entered into the industry in 2020 and are now finding themselves trying to ramp up and, stay afloat?
Yeah, great question for sure, Nicole. Listen, the number one thing is don't panic and understand that every industry is cyclical, right? Ours has certainly had big cycles over time. The 80s were tough. We had a tough time a few years ago in 2015, 2016. But here's what's important to know about the energy industry in particular. We have to have energy to work, right? The whole world needs energy today and in the future. So it'll come back just like it always does. Here's what I think is going to happen. Once people start traveling again, whether it's driving or flying, once the world starts moving again, then oil and gas will reach a much more balanced supply and demand, as it always has. And from that point on, we'll see oil. By the end of the year, I think it'll be back in the 40s, maybe even low 50s. And we'll see that trend into 2021. And in fact, I think we're going to see it trend above that as we go into 2021 because we frankly cut off some of the supply sources that we've had. So what I would say is understand this happens, hang tight, just relax, stay focused on your job every day, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to see some changes in the industry this year. I think we'll see some consolidation because the prices went so low. But frankly, I'm not worried about it. I think it's going to just create more opportunity in our industry and things will be back. We'll keep going just like we always do. So hang in there.
Perfect. I think the people at home will really appreciate that. I know I do. Well, this is bite-sized videos in 5 minutes or less, so we are at time today. So I want to just virtually cheers you and say thanks for your time, and everyone at home, thank you for tuning in.
Cheers, everybody.